So hello and welcome back to another video. Yes, you are joining me back at Rosemere again, and I'm feeling rather positive, as I always do when I arrive at this lake, but even more so today because the sun is out and the car park is empty. I have had the choice of swims. However, I did have one swim in mind before I even got here, and that is where I've got myself situated in the gap swim. Now, after the last session in here, you know, it's going to take some doing to actually beat that. I don't expect that to happen. However, that's not the reason why I'm sitting here. The main reason is, as I've been keeping the bait going in on one spot, that left hand spot. It's a silty spot and it actually comes off of an area which is a known spot for doing a couple of the big fish. It's a tricky spot because you've got to get in the waders, and not a lot of people actually put the effort in to fish it. So with that in mind, I have chosen that area to actually pre-bait. It's had 2 good hits of bait already now, couple of weeks between each hit, you know, between each sessions, but in total it's probably had about 12 kilos of bait. First off, I started off with pellet and sweet corn and boilie crumb because it was a bit colder then, and not only that, I wanted to make sure that all the overfish was feeding the spot. I wanted to get as much activity in that area as possible. And then the second time round, I cut out the crumb and I just went in with pellet, corn and boilies. And this time round, after I leave, I've brought a load of particle with me just because I wanted to get rid of it, and then it's going to get a load of whole boilies as well, the bait that I'm actually going to be fishing. I'm going to start off baiting that spot quite heavy, because I have done that previous. I want to start off fairly heavy on that spot. Now for this time of year, you know, the bites are becoming more regular, the fish are more up for it. A lot of the fish have already been out, and Harris actually come out again last week, so I don't think he's on the cards, but there's every chance that twin scale could come out again, because since I was last here, I think after my last session here, that fish come out a couple of days after. I don't actually know what weight it was. I know what swim it come out of, but I've still got a bit more to find out about that. But it usually comes out quite quickly close together once it's been out, or it certainly did last season anyway, so there's always a chance of that fish. And then there's so many other big fish in here to go at, you just never know. You just got to keep rolling that dice, and eventually it'll be my turn for Harris. But for now, my main concern is prepping up that spot. I am going to fish it on this session as I did last session, you know, but what I did on the last session is I baited it really heavy and then put a rod on it, and just left it for the duration. This time I'm going to bait not as heavy because I've got most of the bait ready to go in once I leave, but I'm going to bait it fairly heavy with just boilie, and hopefully that'll bring a bite on that, and hopefully that bait has had time to work for me, and the fish are used to visiting that area and picking up some free bait and not getting hooked. The other 2 spots I'm going to fish the same spots as I fished last time, off of the right hand island. You know, that was a real banker spot for me last year. It has changed a bit slightly in the sense that I fished at 8 1/4. I'm now having to fish it at 8 1/2 to get a decent drop on that, but nonetheless that spot's still there, and it did me a lot of bites. That was my hot rod in this swim last year, so I just can't ignore that spot. And then obviously the spot that did me all the bites on the last trip, that's definitely getting a rod. So what I'm gonna do, because I don't know if there's any fish present at the moment, I've had a walk round, I've seen a couple of fish on the walk round. The fish look quite well spread at the moment. Now this track record of this swim, it tends to be better going into the afternoon. I haven't seen anything out there at the moment, but what I am going to do, because I know all the spots already, I've got no need to lead up. I do need to make a cast to obviously get the rigs in place, because it's a bit out of distance for the baiting pole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray the baits in and then put the rod out. I'm going to wade down the margin, chuck some bait in and then put the rod out, and hopefully, you know, the bait, it pushes the fish away if there is any fish present. And then we can get a lead in without actually spooking them, because it's the lead that spooks them in here, not the bait going in. The bait going in on the head, it does move them off the spot, but they're more inclined to come back. Certainly that's what we've seen looking up at the trees anyway. When you feed the fish from up the trees, that's what happens. But as soon as somebody plops a lead on their head, that's it, they're gone, and they don't tend to come back. The only time they come back is if somebody else plops a lead in down the lake and it pushes them back up here. And me being the only one on at the moment, you know, I've got to do everything I can to try and trip one of these carp up. But I am feeling very positive. Tactics as usual. I'm going to go in with 12mm baits again. Them slightly different this time, is it? I haven't pre-soaked them in kettle water, given the heat treatment. They're already quite a soft bait anyway, but what I have done is they've been sitting in the matching stim liquid, and what I've done is I did them 3-4 days ago, and now they've absolutely swelled right out and bloated out. So they are actually slightly bigger than 12mm. They're actually about 14mm, but that's perfect for the hook baits that I've got, because I'm going to fish 14mm barrel wafters over the top. So yes, that is the plan of attack. All out boilie approach. Obviously that bait's going to go in at the end, but wish me luck. Very positive, fingers crossed for another big fish, or any fish for that matter. Just another couple of bites will do me, but it is looking good. Bright sky. It's not as warm as it was, and it's not forecast to be. It's actually dipping a little bit, but I know these fish and they'll still be moving around, and the fish look spread, so it's all to play for. It's just down to me really. I am all settled into the swim now. The rods have actually been fishing for a couple of hours, and to be honest, it was quite easy to get the rods out there. I did, however, check that island spot like I said I was gonna. I can fish that at 8.5 wraps. I still can't fish it where I was fishing it last year because it's still weeded over. However, it is a little bit cleaner than what it was last time when I fished it. And I just believe that's because of the amount of bait that's been going over there. It's not just myself that fishes that spot, but that might not be just fish, you know, because you get a lot of problems from the bird life over there. Already I've had a mallard pick me up and a coot pick me up, I did have to replace that rod after the mallard picked me up because I was just too concerned. I'm not as concerned when the coots pick you up because they usually pick the bait up with the feet, not with the beak. And as soon as they feel any resistance, they just let go. But the mallards, they go down and, you know, they move the lead basically. And I was a bit concerned about that. So yeah, anyway, I'm losing track of what I was saying. So yeah, since I've been set up and settled in and that, the margin rod went out lovely, nice firm drop. Did go in fairly heavy, but not as heavy as I originally intended to. That's just because I don't know how much bait's been cleared off from there. If the fish are visiting, I'd be very, very surprised if the fish haven't visited there and it's just been cleared off by the smaller fish. But time will tell, you know. I am expecting that rod to start coming good very soon. But I have located the fish since I last spoke to you. You know, there's always a few places on this lake when the sun's up high and that where they tend to go, especially at this time of year, and it's usually where the reeds and that are. Now, the peg that's to the right of me, Last Resort that's called, and then opposite Helly, that fishes out to like a main reed bed there, and I went round there and there's quite a lot of fish round there. I probably counted between 12 and 15 fish. There was quite a few fish up there, but amongst them fish there was only one 30-pounder and a couple of 20s. Everything else was sort of double, low double. It was basically the new stock of fish that was majority there, and some of the homegrown commons. I mean, initially I was thinking, shall I go do a bit of stalking, but I don't really want to spook anything. Not if I can help it. They're quite happy over there sitting in the sun, and I've also located some of the bigger fish. Now they're opposite me. There's some reeds which is between Helly and Midwest, and when the sun was out, I mean, it's not long gone in, we've got a bit of cloud cover coming in at the minute. There was quite a few fish up on the surface, all good fish, all 30 plus. To be honest, I didn't see any small ones over there. I did see one jump out, like proper cricket bat it out. It looked like a little common from over here. But since then, you know, I do keep seeing the odd high back coming across the surface and that. So I think I'm in key position here. You know, they always move across that island, and they come round the bend of that island. Sometimes they bypass this side of the lake and they just keep going up and down, but with the change in the weather as well, I feel really confident. I feel like we're going to pick up at least a fish anyway. I am confident of a bite. Especially we're seeing where majority of the fish are. I did have a little look up in Helly, not Helly, in Luna's water from this side of the bank. Didn't see anything at all up there, which is really odd. Usually you see something. I'm sure if I'd have gone round the lake and up the tree, I'd have probably have seen them, but usually you see the odd one. Especially it always has like a couple of good resident fish in the far margin on this side of the bank, but I didn't see anything. So yeah, that is the state of play. The baiting up went alright. The birds are absolutely doing my head in. On that corner of the island, I don't know what it is, there's coots that are nesting in the back of them reeds, so they're constantly passing in and out where I'm fishing, and it's just a nightmare. I'll just have to keep topping up with the bait though. You know, it's just one of them things, you've got to put up with it. But the main thing is you fish a rig that will reset itself, so you don't have to keep making a recast. The only time I will make a recast is if the lead's been moved or whatever. But I know the spot's big enough for that, for the coots to pick the rig up, drop it again, and know that I'm presented. So yeah, I feel like it's just a matter of time. Usually it's sort of like from 3 o'clock in the afternoon onwards where they start to, you know, come out of them reeds and start to drift out into this main zone here. Basically out in the middle of this swim there's a big weed bed, big dense weed bed. I can't find a drop in that weed bed. I've tried quite a few times to try and find a drop in it because you do notice the fish in there quite regular. you usually see them passing over the top of it, or early morning and that, you see them fizzing up in it, and that's a lot of the time, you know. It's not that they're actually feeding there, it's the disturbance they make as they're passing through it. You always tend to see them bubblers coming up. They do pass through it. I'd imagine underneath that weed there's like a maze of tunnels, and it's just finding, you know, which part of that weed bed they come out of and where them tunnels start. And certainly that left hand rod is, you know, it's in that zone. It's the one that I'm most confident in of getting another bite. I would really like a bite on that left hand rod though, to start seeing some sort of reward for what efforts I've been putting in. But nonetheless, I'm going to keep prepping that area, and it will come good at some point, I am sure of it. But for now, I'm going to sit back, have another cup of tea, keep my eyes on this water. I think I've waffled on far too long, but I have been making up fresh rigs since I've been here, so I think I've earned another cup of tea. Wow, just absolute wow. Beautiful. Just look at that. Well, I do like it when a plan comes together. It is 3:30 now, and just gone 3 o'clock I received a take on the right hand rod. But before that, I was literally just about to turn the camera on and say that I've noticed a few fish fizzing behind the spot, and I just knew it was a matter of time. And this is an incredible fish. It is actually a recapture, I'm sure it is. I think I had this at £28 last year, but it's just gone over the magical £30 barrier. £30 and 6 ounces. I'm absolutely chuffed to bits. He ripped off as well, and on both sides of this fish it's like a double row linear. If I was ever going to name a fish, this would definitely be called double row. He is gorgeous, if I do say so myself, and I am sure I've had this one. I'll have to check my pictures, but nonetheless I'm not bothered. Just check that out. That is absolutely phenomenal. He is gorgeous, and it's come to the right hand side, the 8.5 wrap spot. Didn't even have a bite on that spot last time I was here, but I have this time, and that was my banker rod last year, so hopefully it's gonna start producing a few fish, that spot, for me. Just flick him round. God, them scales are phenomenal. Absolutely. Oh, I am made up. Oh, got a bite. Well, I am out of breath now, but where was I? I just can't believe that. Another take. Anyway, I slipped the fish back in the water. I've got it back out again. The other fish is in the net. Looks like a good 20 from first glance. That was off the left-hand rod, but for now, let's just finish admiring this beauty before I slip him back. Jesus Christ, they love the maxi nut in here. I can't believe it. Just can't believe it. It's kicking off again. Whew, mental. My head is blown, completely blown. Anyway, slip this back, get the next one out, get that rod back out, see if we can't make something else happen. Back out there. Perfect. Well, complete and utter carnage. You just don't expect it fishing Rosemere. It's never happened to me like this before. I mean, there could be a few things to factor into it. The time of year, obviously my knowledge for the lake is a lot better than it was the previous seasons gone. But one thing's for sure, I am absolutely enjoying it. And the fish just keep coming. I keep putting that bait out there, replacing the rigs, doing what I'm doing, and the bites keep coming. So I am going to make hay while the sun is shining, let's put it that way. This is another lovely fish, another scaly one, should I say. 19 pound 4 ounces just gone, same rig, same bait and everything. This one come off the left hand rod, the other one was off the right hand rod, so at least now I've got two spots that are working for me. Hopefully, you know, that margin rod will come into play at some point. I'm hoping that that's going to be my big fish rod, fingers crossed. But for now, let's get this one up. And there we go, look. I've definitely not had this fish before. I'd recognise it if I had. Especially the size of it as well. Very close to 20, heavily scaled. It's quite distinctive really. Even the shape of it's quite distinctive. But he's took a liking to the nut bait again. I say again, but what I mean is it's another fish that's fallen to the nut bait. I just, you know, I've been all out fish meal on here since I set off. You know, I started off using the LM94, which is a liver fish meal bait, and then obviously moving on to the Scopex squid. I've not really played around with any other baits apart from the fish meals, so it is really nice to be catching them on a nut-based bait. And maybe, you know, that'll bring the extra fish which I haven't had already, because sometimes, you know, just making a slight little change like that often brings them other fish that you aren't catching. I think this is the best side. Just look at that row of scales on him. You'll do, you'll do. I hope this continues, I really do. It could be short-lived, as I'm the only one here, you know, it doesn't take much to spook them. But I keep, you know, after every bite I'm topping up with a bait, so hopefully it's enough to keep nicking them as they're passing by. And it is a good passing spot, this swim, which makes it so good really, because you always feel like you've got fish passing over you at some point. So yes, waffling on, slipping back, cup of tea time, sit back and see if anything else happens. I shall speak to you in a bit. Well, good evening, and as you can probably see that the sun is just setting behind them trees there. It's about 8:30 now, so a good few hours have passed now since I last had a bite. Now I've been sitting in my chair, that's currently where I'm sitting at the moment. This is the view that I've been looking at for, the last few hours. I have already had my tea, had a nice spaghetti bolognese, but other than that I've pretty much been sat here looking for any sort of signs. Yes, and since them fish I've not picked up on anything feeding at the moment. But when I think back to last time when I was here, especially on that left-hand rod that I was getting the bites on the left-hand island, should I say, not the left-hand rod, but the middle rod as you look at it, I didn't really see any signs of feeding over there. Just every now and then I'd clock that the fish was going past, either it be on the surface or it'd disturb some weed and I'd see the odd little bubble coming up. But certainly on that right hand spot over there, it was just like it was meant to happen, I love it when it's like that. It's absolutely textbook. It's great when it happens like that, to see the fizz in and then get the bite. I mean, I really was just about to turn the camera on and say I think a bite's coming at any time. Yeah, and it was away. An absolute one-toner as well. In fact, they both was. Well, you heard the second one, didn't you? Yeah, absolutely scared the life out of me. I hate it when that happens, when you've got a fish on the mat, but, the main thing was get the fish back in the water safely. And when you're trying to do them zips up when you're in a hurry, it's just a nightmare and the rod's absolutely melting off. But luckily for me, it didn't cause too much drama. It actually veered off to the right. It was heading out towards the helipad swim, which is a good thing, because it could have gone round the back of that island. And it's a good thing that I set the second net up as well, because I don't usually. But I just thought, whilst I'm lifting that fish out, I'll set the other net up just in case. I must have known, eh? Hindsight. But yeah, as it stands, I have had a look down to the left. Still haven't seen anything in Luna. Had a look out in Last Resort again. Have seen a couple of fish still in Last Resort. There's not as many as there was, so possibly, them two fish that I caught possibly could have come from that group of fish, but there is still a few fish over there. I've baited the stalking spot in the back bay. I keep popping over and just having a little look, and up until now the bait is still there. I expect that bait to be gone in the morning. That's usually what happens. They seem to sneak in on darkness, especially at this time of year. The winter, springtime, I mean, it's late April now, and condition. Oh, what's that? I think that might be that weed that's on the end of the line there. I tell you, every beep gets your heart racing in here, it really does. But what I was just about to go on to say is conditions for this time of year, it's not bad really. I mean, we have had some better weather, meaning warmer weather, and it is a bit more mild this week, should we say. Well, especially going into tonight anyway, we've got lows of 4 degrees, and tomorrow's going to be the same sort of contrast as what today's been. Highs of 13-14 degrees, intermittent cloud. But behind that cloud, we're going to have blue skies and sunshine. It's not actually forecast any rain, which is a good thing, because the rain really is a kiss of death on here. So there is chance of a bite or two tomorrow. Not particularly sure what's going to happen tonight, but one thing that is going to happen is I am going to put some more bait over that right hand rod, because them coots have just absolutely annihilated that spot. They really have, and I'm not 100% how much bait they've had or what's actually left, so I'm just going to top up with at least 3 or 4 catapultfuls anyway, just to be certain that I'm going into the night with some bait over the rig. But other than that, that's me pretty much sorted. I'm going to call it there, turn in, as soon as this light fades, I'm going to keep watching the water up until darkness, and then I'm just going to get my son straight to bed, to be quite honest, with the hope of getting up early in the morning if I don't get awoken by one of them alarms going off. So yes, I shall keep you updated. Well, good morning. It is a very pleasant morning, not a lot of wind, but the noticeable thing is it was a cold night. I mean, I'm still wrapped up now, woolly hat on and my jacket, and I still feel quite chilly. I've got my base layers on still as well. I mean, you sort of, this time of year, you sort of find yourself taking layers off and putting layers on all the time. It can be a bit up and down, but the main thing is at least it's not dropping freezing at night. It seems like we are definitely past that period. I mean, we're coming to the end of April now. Everything's starting to bloom. The bloody fighter planes keep going over me at the minute. I do apologise. I'm trying to time it between them going. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, last night was really quiet. I kind of expected it. I don't know why, but it just seemed to go really quiet and dead last night. I did, in last resort, see a couple of fish feeding out in last resort. A couple of fizzers there. But anyway, I just, you know, sort of sat back, watched the rods for a bit. I did get awoken in the night to a couple of bleeps on the right hand rod. And sat up and listened, and I could hear the mallards diving on that rod in the middle of the night. But I did scare them off. It's not a tufty torch this, it's actually just a normal torch. It is a really bright one. I got it off of eBay jobby. But I tell you what, it's a great piece of kit this. It doesn't actually, you know, like scare the living daylights out of the tufties, but it definitely deters them. I mean, last night when I put it out there, then mallards moved off, the tufties all flew away, but in the daytime it just sort of pushes them off gently, which is quite good. But the main reason I've got this really is I actually put it on one of the solar bank sticks, and you can widen and narrow the beam, should I say. It makes it really easy for putting the rod back out at night, you know, if you're casting up to a spot. Well, not only that, it is great, you know, if you have a fish in the night, because I just put it on that bank stick, I widen the angle, and you can set the, you know, how bright you want it. It's a good bit of kit, that, and it's rechargeable as well. I think it was only about 15-16 quid off of eBay. If I can find the link for it, I'll put it in the description. Good bit of kit. So yes, this morning then, up at first light. I don't know why I always get up at first light on here, because really there's not a lot to see at first light. You tend to get a bite first light if you're going to get one, but you don't really see any sort of feeding going on. Generally the feeding starts as the sun gets up, really. They are pretty much dominated by the sun, and sort of after 8 o'clock in the morning is the best time, I find anyway. I think today, with cloud cover being like it is, I would say, you know, sort of around that 10 o'clock period, I'm going to start to see a few fizzers. I have seen one fish feeding where the boat slide is, just to the left of me. Went and stood in the boat slide there. There's definitely one feeding fish there. Haven't seen any fizzing anywhere else yet, so they're having a bit of a lie-in, if you ask me. But nonetheless, I'm just about to start getting brekkie on. Mrs bought me a new pan for Christmas, and to be honest, I only used it for the first time last week at the Elites. Owen says to me, says, Paul, I'm going to treat you to some food at the Elites, and he got this Think food package, and I thought, flipping heck, I best take some proper tackle then. But I tell you what, it is a phenomenal pan, this. It's actually like it's got a steamer tray that goes in it as well, so you can like steam vegetables. It's a frying pan one side, it's got individual sections on the other side. It's a right piece of kit, and you've got 2 handles, so you can still use it to keep the heat in and stuff like that. But later on, I'm experimenting later on. I'm going to put the steamer tray on, and I've got, what have I got? I've got new potatoes, broccoli, carrots, and swede. Yeah, so I'm going to steam all them on the tray, and then I've got a nice bit of steak just to quickly fry. I like my steak rare, so. But sausage and egg this morning. Oh, it is big and bulky, but I tell you what, it is great, and it's actually a doddle to clean. It just wipes clean. So I'm gonna get me breakfast on now, keep my eyes peeled, and hopefully, you know, sort of 10 o'clock onwards, we might start to see a couple of fizzers. I may need to move. It might be that I've spooked them because I'm the only one here, but time will tell. But you know, the conditions are not great. I want that sun to start poking through. That would definitely get them moving about a bit more. So yeah, that's the update, and I shall keep you posted. Well, good afternoon, and we are approaching 2 o'clock at the moment, and so far up to now it has been quite a frustrating morning, to be honest. Not seeing a lot of signs of fish this morning. Really the only sort of feeding that I did see was over in that boat slide that I mentioned earlier, and you know, I've kept looking, I've kept my eyes on the water, but the main frustration has been the bloody birds more than anything. I mean, there's been 6 tufties on, but it's the mallards that are really causing me a problem at the moment. They just will not leave my spots alone, and nothing I can do to deter them. I've just got to let them keep picking it up. It's been doing my head in, to be quite honest. But that said, you know, I am not recasting them every single time they pick me up. If it doesn't move the lead around and the bobbin sits back in the same position, I'm sort of leaving it. I have had to make a couple of casts though, a couple of recasts, but I just want to keep it to a bare minimum. But at the moment, they've backed off. As you can see, they're not out in front of me at the moment, and the main reason I flicked the camera on is because I'm now starting to see signs of fish moving. What they're actually doing is they're coming from Midwest Swim, and they're coming down the back there along them back reeds, and then I've seen one nut out just to the right of that little tree island there. I know it's hard to see, but that actually nutted out and it was heading towards me, and since then I've seen a little bit of fizzing out in this zone. Obviously I'm fishing here and I'm fishing here, so I've got both of their patrol routes covered. Now it does always tend to be sort of mid-afternoon when they start mooching around in this area, and I'm looking at the clock, you know, it's just gone 2 o'clock, the signs are there, it's looking very, very promising for a bite. I feel very, very hopeful. I am a little bit concerned about how much bait the ducks keep taking and the tufties and that, so I am sort of re-topping up, you know, every sort of hour or so. Not a lot of bait, I'm literally like 10 baits, you know, and then that'll do, just so I am sort of replenishing what them birds are taking. But as it stands at the moment, everything is set. I'm happy, you know, I haven't been picked up since re-putting them rods back out there, and I'm happy that I'm sitting on some bait. I think it's only a matter of time. They're not disturbing me on that margin rod. for whatever reason, I don't know, because I can see tufties down in that area, but they're not picking it up. But certainly where I'm fishing the other two rods, it is shallower, and them spots I imagine to be a lot more glowing, because especially that one on the right hand island, it is a gravel spot that I imagine that sticks out like a sore thumb. So yes, I just thought I'd give you a bit more of an update. I'm sitting here now thinking it could go at any minute, it really could. So yes, come on. And a couple of the fish that I've seen as well, the one that I seen come across the surface, all you could see was the hump on its back out the water. Definitely one of the 40s, old Humpty Dumpty going across. And the one that nutted out as well, that was a real good fish, you know, mid 30, possibly upper. It was a good fish. So yeah, not seeing the little pasties jump out, and seeing a few decent fish in the area, and a little bit of fizzing. Come on, come on. Fish. Look at that. Oh, take shoulders on me. That's a big fish. Oh, that is a big one. $39.10. Well, it's not been long at all since I did that update and the left hand rod was away. And whilst I was playing this one in, I mean, this one caused me a bit of a chew. I had to re-put the other rod back out because I had to go underneath it and whatever. But anyway, there was some fizzing on the right hand spot as well. So I was a bit cheesed off that I had to put that rod back out because it could have been a repeater yesterday. However, we've got one of the good ones. I knew it was a good one as soon as I lifted into it, and it did give a good account of itself. It's just gone £39.10. I recognise the fish, and it's the one I named. It's Sharon's fish. You know, everybody hates a recapture, but you know, a bite's a bite. You know, I've got to appreciate it for what it is. You know, I am going to get recaptures trying to get the fish that I do want, and I'm certainly getting my way through the stock now, so it's inevitable. But anyway, nonetheless, I'm going to show you this one and slip it straight back. I don't want to stress it out too much. Ready? There we go. Oh, I'll show you the other side. Maybe it might calm down a bit. A bit more water. I am actually starting to run out of bait. It's a good job I brought that extra bait, the particle and that, because it needs must if I need to, eh? But at the moment I've only got a couple of kilo boilie left, and if the bites keep coming I might struggle. Ah, there we go. Ah, yes. Slip it back and then we shall have another catch up in a bit. Well, it's been a few hours since I last spoke to you, and to be quite honest, I fluffed that opportunity up, you know. With that other fish going into that other rod, I had to redo it. And I decided on putting a few baits in first, you know, to try and push the fish out of the area. But I managed a few baits out there, and then the catapult snapped. And I just thought, right, I'm going to chance it and get the rod out there. But, you know, that fizzing just disappeared, really. And haven't seen any more fizzing in that area since then. I've repaired the catapult since then and rebaited, but because it's really short now, the catapult elastic, I've actually been firing out single baits. Not only for that, it's to try and save on bait as well, with it being so short now, I'm sort of firing it, and you always get a couple that misfire and go off to the side, so I've been doing it as single baits. Yeah, so it took me quite a while to get a bit of bait out there, but we are fishing. And I must have spoken too soon as well with the tufties on the left hand margin rod, because about half an hour ago gets a bit of a twitchy take. I thought, what's going on here? And then looks, and there's a tufty just skipping across the surface, and then the rod starts to pick up. Oh, and it got me in a right mess. It went straight into the bloody tree. Oh, it caused me a right blooming meltdown. I could see the tufty sort of dangling from the tree, and my lines wrapped round the branch, and I thought, oh my god, what the hell am I gonna do here? But luckily the tufty fell off, and I managed to pull. I had to get the waders on, go down there and just sort of pull back. Luckily I got everything back. Had to replace the rig, mind you. The rig was absolutely smashed to bits. But that's that. Rod's back out there. I've replaced that. What I've actually done is I've changed it slightly. I was fishing a mega slack line, because between me and that spot that I'm fishing, there's not much weed at all, so I could fish a mega slack line. And not only that, you know, you'd like to think when they're ghosting up and down that margin, you don't want them bumping into your lines. At least when you're fishing out in the pond, you're always going over weed and everything like that. Most of the time the weed is out of harm's way. But I certainly didn't want to have them bumping into the lines. But what I've actually done is I've put some more tubing on, but I've gone 1.5 meters in length. Believe me, it was a bit of a pain in the ass to thread it through, but I got there in the end, got that sorted, and I'm fishing like a semi-slack line now, so all that bottom end is pinned down. But I just can't afford to have another tufty pick it up and go into that tree. Not a chance. So yeah, but the reason I've turned the camera on now is we've got a bit of wind coming in at the minute, but every time when the wind slows down a little bit, I'm starting to see the odd little bit of fizz. At the moment it's long, it's sort of in helipads water, but the direction in which the fish are working, it's working towards me, so I do think we could be in with another opportunity of a bite. Yeah, within the next sort of couple of hours. It's a good time. It's done a lot of bites for me this swim, sort of, you know, just before darkness. We've just gone 6 o'clock now, so I'm sitting here rather hopeful, and every time that wind drops down, you know, my eyes are on the water like a hawk. I just pray and hope that the bloody tufties leave me alone long enough, because usually they come out in force at the same time as the fish. You know, they know it's getting dark, so that's it, they're on it, especially the coots. It's not so much the tufties, but to be quite honest, the mallards have caused me more bother than anything, because they just won't scare off. Them tufties will just scare off with this. I turn it on to the old flashing mode like that, point it out there, and it just deters them off. So although it's not a tufty torch, it actually works. But don't do anything with the mallards, they just carry on regardless. I mean, you can stand there waving your arms, flapping at them and that, trying not to, you know, make too much bloody disturbance, but they just ignore you. They need a bloody pellet up their arse, that's what they need. Not that I'd do that, obviously, but it bloody makes you feel like that sometimes. It's been quite a frustrating session where they're concerned. But nonetheless, we've had a few bites and a couple of nice fish, and I'm feeling rather hopeful of another one. It'd be nice to be acquainted with one that I haven't had. There's a few in here which I still want. Obviously there's Harris, the big one. I want twin scale. Cut tails, another one that I'd really like to catch. Do you know, it's hard for me to think now, I've had that many. But yeah, twin scale. Oh, little Harris. Oh, how can I forget little Harris? That is a banging fish, that. And the big orange, I'd like to meet that one as well. But out of the fish that I'm left to catch, certainly Cuttail, Twin Scale and Harris. They're my main 3 targets now that we've picked some of the others off. But I would also, the longfish, I haven't had that neither. That's a nice fish, you know, sort of around the mid 40 mark usually. I think that was last out at 46. Twin Scale was down in weight when it was last out. A couple of weeks ago that come out and it was at 47 it was, and usually at this time of year it's sort of hovering around 49, 50. I would expect that to creep back up there just before spawning, but you just never know with that fish. It's up and down quite a lot. But certainly Harris, you know, that could be on the cards again before spawning. It's a regular visitor to the bank. The only trouble is, when it does get caught quite regular, it tends to sulk up for a while and actually drop some weight before it puts it back on. So if it's been between captures, you know, quite a long time, you know, you stand a better chance of catching it at that 60 pound mark, especially at the key times like we're coming into now. I mean, Kenny was the first person to catch it this year, you know, on that key time, and it was bang on 60 pound. And then when it was last out at 59 pound. So yeah, it just goes to show it had been sat sulking for a little bit before it got caught again, and it was probably just on that build up back up there. But yeah, there's a good chance of that fish. I mean, it makes no difference to me whether I catch it at 50 whatever or 60 whatever. At the end of the day, I just want to catch that fish. I really don't mind what weight it is, but if I could choose to, I would catch it at 60. I've been in, obviously, you know, getting nominated for Carp Angler of the Year last year. I've been in talks with Chris Hayden quite a bit. And one thing we got talking about was captures of fish, and one thing that become apparent is nobody in the UK, as far as I'm aware and he is aware, has had UK 40s, 50s, 60s and 70. So if I get that 60, that'll be the set complete. So that is my mission. If I don't get it here, then it's going to be my mission over at Grenville. And I have already got somewhere earmarked for after there. I mean, to be quite honest, part of me doesn't want to leave here because I absolutely love it, but I am starting to repeat, so I need to hurry up and catch that big one. I really do. I've not come to the end of the second season yet. I have decided to stay for the third season. That's just because I've had to pay my deposit already. But who knows what could happen between then and this season ending. I don't think there's going to be long left of this season. They usually tend to go around about the end of May time, and then it shuts down until July. As soon as they start spawning, they have a shutdown on here. That's one good thing, and the fish get left alone, you know, and they get a lot of free bait. What Ben does, Ben the owner, he does like a opening weekend, so to speak, of but in order to get to fish that opening weekend, you've got to come and attend the work party, and you draw for a swim. So you draw for the swims before the work party and everything, so you've got all that period with the swim that you've drawn, and you can come and keep trickling bait in however many times you want. I mean, it doesn't appeal for me because it's always at a weekend and I work weekends and I just can't afford to take them holidays off. But hey ho, that's that. Anyway, I'm waffling on far too long. I just thought I'd flip the camera on and give you sort of my thought process of what's happening at the moment. And it is looking very, very likely for another bite. I'll be very surprised if we don't get a bite before this evening's out. Let's put it that way. But, you know, tomorrow morning, I really don't know. You know, it's in the lap of the gods really whether we'll get a bite in the morning, especially if today's anything to go by. I think really what I need is the sun to break through tomorrow. I haven't actually had a look to see what it's doing tomorrow morning yet, but I will do that before I speak to the camera again, so we know what we're dealing with, and then I'll have a bit of an idea. And not only that, I'll have had my eyes on the water for a bit longer. So yes, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to get my tea on soon. Oh, I can't wait for that. So yes, speak to you in a bit. Oh my God, heart attack. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. Jesus, he fought hard, he did. Well, as you just seen, I landed this one just as the light was fading. And to be quite honest, I think my chance had gone. The fizzing that I had seen had just sort of fizzled out. And I don't even know where this bite come on. There was no sort of indication or inklings of anything feeding on the spot. And it just absolutely melted off from nowhere. 24 pound 8 ounces just gone. Very funny shaped fish, this one. Definitely not caught it before because it's very recognisable. And it's come from the right hand side of the island again, so that's 2 bites on both of them. I'd really love to get a bite on that margin rod. I know I keep saying it, but I'd really like to see my efforts start paying off on that rod. But here we go. Let's get this one up. Always angry. I was on about that torch earlier, and that is like blinding me at the moment. I can't even see the screen hardly, so it's going to be hard to line this up. Ready? Very funny shape. Oh, there we go. Oh yeah. Hoo-hoo! You can't even see my face with that blooming torch like that. But at least you can see the fish. That is the main thing. And he's a lovely fish. Very nice. He'll do for me. Yes. God, he's such a hard fish to hold because of the shape of him. To be honest, from what I'm looking at, you can't really tell, but when he's on the mat, he is a very funny shape. Anyway, I'm going to slip him back, and I think it's time for my steak dinner, because I am absolutely starving. I've been sort of holding off, waiting for that bite, anticipating a bite anyway, and I'm glad I did. Now I can sit back, have some tea, and go to bed, and hopefully another Carpus interruptus finds us in the night. Let's get this fella back. Well, top of the morning to you. And it was another cold night again last night, and as you can see, I'm still wrapped up now. It feels really cold this morning, a lot colder than yesterday, unless that's just me being chilled to the bone, I don't know, but certainly the only time I felt warm is in that sleeping bag. However, last night, bit of a quiet night really on the old carp front. Didn't really pick up any more signs of fish after having that fish, but I did have 2 tench last night. Now that's a really odd one for me because there's not many tench in here, and I've never had a tench before from here, and they was both really small things, about a pound or so, not very big at all really. And to say that they took a size 4 hook is just unbelievable. I had one on the left hand margin, so yeah, the spots come good. The tench like it, and then I had one off the corner of the island in the early hours of the morning. I didn't bother fanning around. I did take a picture of one of them in the net because I was just amazed by it, but then when the second one come along, I just thought, stuff that, chucked it back in. But yeah, that's the state of play at the moment. I've been awake since first light. I got up about 5:45, so it was just about getting light at the time. And again, it's another quiet morning, and it's just the weather really, it really is. I mean, certainly when the weather's like this, they don't start to migrate over here until gone dinner time. It's usually around 1 o'clock-ish when you start to see them coming down that back margin over there, from Midwest swim over into the helipad swim, and then usually a couple of fish drift over here from 1 o'clock onwards, unless the sun gets up. If the sun gets up, they migrate up that margin. You know, they seem to take the same patrol route, but depending on the time is what the sun's doing. If it's a bright hot sunny morning, they're straight up here, and you can be getting a few bites here in the morning. And certainly that showed the last time I was here, because I did pick up, I think I had 4 bites in the last morning. And now that it's been overcast on both mornings, you know, they've sort of done the same thing each day, and I am running out of time. I need to be packed up and gone by about 1 o'clock at the latest, so I am going to sit it out. I'm just about to actually put the last of my bait in. I've probably got about maybe half a kilo if I'm lucky. I'm just going to fire them out as singles and spread them over each rod with what I've got left, in the hope that, you know, we'll get another chance before I go. But this morning, whilst I've been sitting here, I've been tying up more rigs. The amount of rigs I've gone through recently is just unbelievable. 2 packs of curves hooks, jelly wire, a full spool of jelly wire, just unbelievable. I mean, I know I haven't touched on rigs recently, and that's just because I am using the same rig. I don't like to keep boring people and showing you the same thing over and over again. But what I will do, I've got 4 tied up here, all fresh and ready. What I will do is I will quickly just run over it for anybody that's new to the channel or not seen or is interested. So what I've actually got there, I know you can't see this, but I'll put some close-ups on for you. So what I've actually got there, the rig itself is only 4 inches. I like 4 to 5 inches on here, and that's just because of the way the fish feed. A lot of the bites from the bigger fish are very finicky little takes. You know, you don't get rippers from the big fish, or certainly that seems to be what's happened in the past anyway. There is the odd one where you get a ripper or whatever, you know, they're not all the same, but majority of the bites, they're very slow finicky takes, and after watching and observing the fish feeding in the edge, yes, they don't move a lot. They actually come over, hover, suck and eat it on the spot, move on to the next one, eat it on the spot. They don't just like go along, suck, move, and it doesn't seem to matter the way you bait neither. Even if you put a big spread of bait out there, like a spread of boilies, and you get them moving about or whatever, it just seems to be the smaller fish. So 4 inches is my desired length, which I like to go for. Sometimes I'll increase it up to 5, depending on what bottom I'm fishing over, and the material does change. It's either jelly wire or the Camotex soft that I'm using. So yeah, I always like to keep everything pinned down. So I've got a tungsten anti-tangle sleeve, I have 2 blobs of putty, and what I have done is I always have the bottom bit stripped back, so it does create that little bit of a hinge effect. I have a little bit of a shrink tube over the eye of the hook, and that's really only there just to stop the whipping from you know, moving, and the hair actually moving. When you tie a rig ring on, the last thing you want is it to sort of spin round on the rig, and sometimes it can do that just from the cast making it out, you know. So I'd always like to put a bit of shrink tube there, but it doesn't actually need it, this rig. It's not there for the hooking properties, it's only there just to hold it in place. And then I've got a 2mm rig ring, as I mentioned, and I have that opposite the barb. And then, you know, the desired length which you like for the bait that you're mounting. And at the moment I'm using 14mm barrel wafters, and I find with a size 4 curved hook they sit absolutely perfect. I don't like the hook to be wafting up or anything like that. I like the hook to be laid on the deck and the bait to be wafting, which is why I don't really use wafters a lot, because most of the wafters that you buy from the shops, they're far too buoyant, and you've got to play around with bits of lead core, you know, sticking it in the bottom of them or wrapping it round the bottom of your rig to get it to sit right. And I just think it defeats the object. But these ones, certainly them maxing up ones anyway, they sit absolutely perfect with a size 4. I mean, if anything, if you leave them out overnight, they do actually drop down and become a bottom bait. But up until this point, you know, most of the fishing that I've done on here has either been with a bottom bait or a snowman. So I guess it is a wafter presentation, the snowman, but you've got control over how you make it sit. You know, you can slice bits off, you can put 2 together, that sort of thing. But as it happens, you know, I've been using a 15mm and a 12mm bait, and that's what majority of my bites have been on previous. And then going into the summer, you know, a lot of bites that I was getting was with the hard-on baits, 18 and 20mm baits, and what I was actually doing was pre-soaking 15mm baits and bloating them right out. So by the time they'd bloated right out, there was actually like 18mm baits anyway, so it wasn't like a standout thing, anything like that. It was match the hatch. And it's pretty much what I'm doing at the moment. Them 12mm baits that I'm putting out there, I've bloated them out, and what I've actually done to bloat them out, I haven't soaked them in kettle water like I usually do. I've used the stim liquid, the matching stim liquid. It's a very thin runny liquid, that. And what I do to 5 kilo of bait, I put a full 500ml bottle straight into the bucket, straight over. I let the boilies thaw out first and then put them into the bucket, and then what I do is I put the stim in there. So, you know, it is a couple of days before you come fishing, you want to start this process. And then all I do is I give it a good mix up, I leave it 24 hours, and then I give the bucket a good old shake and turn round. It's important to have a bucket with a good seal on it, because then I turn the bucket over so all the stim runs back the other way, and then usually by the time you get to come, it's all absorbed into the bait. You don't get any residue around the bottom of the bucket or anything like that. Usually after 3 or 4 days, it's completely absorbed into the bait. You've just got to keep working that bucket around. The more you work that bucket around, the better, to be quite honest. Yeah, and that's what's been doing me the bites at the moment. Anyway, as I sit here and look out, I am not seeing any signs of feeding at all whatsoever. Pretty much a repeat of yesterday morning, so it is in the lap of the gods whether or not we get another bite. But nonetheless, I'm on my 3rd cup of tea this morning, and I'm just about to put some breakfast on, sausage and eggs this morning, and then we shall have a little bit of a catch up before I go, if nothing else has happened. Well, that time has come again where we need to start packing up. Well, I have already started packing up. As you can see, the bivvy's down and that. Just them rods to bring in. It's been another good session. However, I have hung it out for as long as I possibly could to try and winkle another bite out, but it just hasn't materialised. I have, however, picked up on the odd signs, but again, they've been showing out long over in the helipad swim. Maybe in hindsight I should have moved, but I was certain they'd move over, and I still am certain they'd move over. If I had more time, I'm sure that they would definitely move over at some point, because they're not too far away. They're just not sneaking over far enough, let's put it that way. But hey ho, I am waffling on. It has been quite a few hours since I last spoke to you. We're actually going into mid-afternoon now, and really I should have been gone for about 1 o'clock. So yes, the traffic is going to be very bad on the way home, and that journey is going to take me longer than usual. But hey ho, that's carp fishing. What the missus don't know don't hurt her. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and also subscribe if you haven't already. I would really appreciate your support. Until the next one, see you again.